Hello and welcome to Paint Along Studios TV. Today we will be painting Water Dancer. We're going to need some supplies. We will need paper towels, water for cleaning brushes, some styrofoam plates for mixing colors, and some liquid acrylics. We're going to be using some white, deep yellow, burnt sienna, Mars black, phthalo blue. We also need some brushes, a number 10 Filbert brush, stiff bristle, a number 6 round brush, a number 0 script brush. Let's start with the number 10 Filbert brush. You will need 3 scoops of white to start with. We're going to be making our background color. We'll also need a small dab of phthalo blue to make a very light blue. We want to fill up the whole back of the canvas. Since it's the same color, any stroke will do, up, down, over, sideways. I'm holding my brush close to the bristles. I usually touch that black metal part of the brush. And you hold it similar to a pencil. I'm also making sure there is no texture left on the canvas, meaning I'm not leaving a blob of paint here and other places the paint is thin. I want everything to dry evenly, so I'm spreading everything out evenly. But I am trying to find all the white in the canvas and fill it up. Then I'll kind of even out the paint, doing up and down or back and forth strokes so that it dries. Let's mix our next color. We will need 1 scoop of white, 1 scoop of phthalo blue, 1 scoop of black, and we're mixing this right on top of the color we had before. We want to add some dark reflective lines in the water. At the top, we're just going to do nice big smears of it. As we travel down, though, we'll make the smears a little bit shorter so they won't quite reach back and forth. I'm also going to be using the flat side of my brush so I can make thin strokes. Okay, I like to make a little bit of a tornado effect. It's kind of shifting down to the right side. Once it touches the right side, it will start shifting down to the left. My paint is kind of mixing with the background color every once in a while. So some of the lines are darker and some of the lines are lighter, which is perfectly fine. Next, we'll clean our brush, pound it up and down in the water. Leave it there for now. We're going to be switching brushes. Number 6 round brush. Okay, we're going to add some thinner reflective lines. I'm changing the color slightly. One has a little more black, one has a little more blue. This one has a little more white. But I want some different colors. And I'm making some thinner strokes, starting along the edge of my thicker strokes, just to kind of thin them out. And anywhere there is a big block of solid color, I want to break it up with these kind of lines all over the place. Now I'm not spreading them out evenly, I'm making clusters of them, meaning a few lines on top of each other or off to the side. They don't have to be the same length though. I can make shorter lines on top of longer lines, or just have them slightly shift. But I would like some shorter lines and some different colors. I'm going between my one that has more blue, one that has more black, one that has more white. So I can get a few different shades of this kind of grayish blue color. This is an abstract reflection. We don't know what it's a reflection of. It might be plants, it might be just the side. We want to wipe our brush out a little bit. We want to switch back to a very, very light color. I just mixed white and blue together. And I'm breaking up the white, the very, very light blue in the background. I'm breaking it up a little bit with this color. I don't want it to be quite as dark as the color I was using before. It just has a little bit extra blue in there. And I'm doing some lines back and forth. Okay, I'm going to be adding some extra white, and I can erase some lines. I want it to be similar to the first color I used, and I'm cutting into some areas to see if I can get rid of some of them, if I had too many, if I felt like they were too clustered, too squished together. Clean that brush, you stir it around in a circle, touch the bottom of the glass, and then gently dry it off on a paper towel. go ahead and figure out where we would like our bird to go. We're going to be using black. I'm using half the length of my brush. See, that's about half the length. Making a line across. I put it a little bit lower so I have room at the top for wings. Okay, and the top will be a little bit shorter than that, about half of that. Okay, so it's about in the middle or a little bit closer to the left side. See, about half. Okay, I'm going to turn that into a little hill shape. So I want to connect all of the ends of these shapes with a little hill or dome shape. This will be the top of the bird's back. He's kind of arching his back. We want to go ahead and fill in that shape with black. We have a very strong light source in front of the bird. And so he's going to be mainly silhouetted in his body. Let's go ahead and make his neck. It's going to extend out of this top line, so I'm tracing it a little bit. I'm going to curve up slightly. And it's almost like a backwards S shape. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. I would like to trace the bottom slightly so it merges out of that shape nicely instead of just sticking out awkwardly. But I would like his neck to be a little bit thicker than just a line. But I do want it to get a tiny bit more narrow where I'm going to be placing the head. Okay, but I want to keep the neck very close to the body, so I'm adding a little bit of thickness to the side that's closest to the body on some parts, usually at that second curve. Okay, I'm keeping this rather straight so it looks like it's somewhat connected. Might fill in that gap between the two shapes a little bit. Evening out the edges, always refilling my brush. Okay, I'm going to be adding a little head right here. It's going to be an oval shape on top, kind of a curve on top, and then a little bit flatter on the bottom. Okay, see that? A little bit flatter on the bottom. It can curve slightly, but not as much as the top. And I'm filling it in as I make this shape. Stick that brush in the water, and let's switch to our small detail brush. He's going to help us with these small details. We're going to do the beak and legs. Same color though, we're going to use some black. Make a small line coming out the bottom of his face. It almost lines up with the bottom line, maybe just a slightly higher. And the one on top will slant slightly. Okay, so I'm tracing so it kind of merges out a nice spot. And you can kind of decide the length. This is a kind of a crane, some sort of water bird, so it's going to have a rather long nose. I'm going to go ahead and make his leg. It's going to be almost at the spot where his neck starts and his body starts, where they both meet. I'm doing two kind of lines that come together on either side. So I trace the shape first and then pull down. The other one I'm going to put it close to the edge, but not exactly touching it. All right, I'm going to bend this leg down. I want to bend it straight down and then curve to the front. Their knees are backwards, so we're not going to curve the same way our knees go. This one will slant and then come straight down. So it's kind of the opposite with the other one. The top part will slant and the bottom part will go straight down. Front leg was the opposite. I'm going to go ahead and thicken the legs slightly. Don't want them super thin. Like you might wobble and, break a leg. We don't want that. So I want to thicken it just a little bit, not as much as the neck. I'm also going to be adding a little bit of length at the bottom. I want him to be looking like he's sitting in water. So I want to add a little bit to the bottom. They're almost like little triangle shapes. I widen it out and make a flat bottom. Okay, so it looks like he's standing in that water. I like to make the back leg a little bit lower than the front leg. Let's mix a new color. 1 scoop of Mars Black, 1 scoop of burnt sienna, and a dab of white, and we're using the same little brush. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of reflection in the bird. She has a little bit of a brown reflection in the curves of her neck towards the bottom. That's the light from the water reflecting up into this very dark silhouette. It'll be a very subtle change. You won't see it too much. It'll almost mix with the black. Clean that brush. We're going to switch to the red brush. So stir it around, clean it off, dry it off, same as before. Using the same color, we're going to make the wings. They're going to be about as tall as our red handle brush. I'm lining it up with the bottom of his body. And I want kind of a boomerang shape. It kind of curves back to the right. And it's right where his leg touches his neck. That's where the bottom part wants to end up. And the other part just kind of goes above it. I want to thicken this a little bit at the bottom, and I want to make this nice sort of thickened shape. So instead of a line, I want to thicken it into a shape, kind of a curved rectangle shape. I'm letting it be a little bit more narrow at the top, a little bit wider, and a little bit slanted at the bottom. Okay, I like to add a little triangle at the top. So I slant a little bit away from that, almost like a little mushroom cap. Okay, I'm going to make the second wing. It's going to start halfway up the first wing, and it will curve almost straight up. And then same thing, I'm going to have that little slant to the side and a little bit of a triangle shape towards the top. And I will thicken it and fill it in. Sometimes I switch colors just slightly so I can keep them separate, so I lighten the color slightly. I'm also going to be adding his tail down here, which is going to be a nice triangle shape, and it just merges off of his body. So most of it's on his body, and it comes off just a little bit at the end, and I'm letting it mix a little bit. Let's lighten it a little bit at the bottom, so I added some extra white to it. I'm mixing it in. It's pretty wet, so I can mix it in with my brush. I'm going to add a little highlight at the top of the wings. I'm letting it mix in. I'm using my brush to kind of mix it, but you can also use your finger. Okay, I'm keeping them separate, so I'm adding a little extra white, a little extra lighter version of this color to separate those wings. You can also add back some dark. If it's kind of mixing too much, add back some of that black. Now I'm going to make a little bit of a feathery effect. I'm making little tiny lines, jagged lines coming out the bottom of that triangle. Okay, that slanted triangle. This will be the start of my wings. We want to switch to the little blue brush. We want a much lighter version of this color, so let's go ahead and mix it. We want 2 scoops of white, 1 scoop of deep yellow, 1 scoop of burnt sienna, and a tiny dab of Mars black. It's going to be kind of a yellowish, beige-ish color. So kind of a tan that's more yellow. Then we want to have a lighter version of this color, so we'll just add a big scoop of white over here. And then we're going to have a darker version of this color. Going to add a little bit extra brown, a little bit extra deep yellow, and a little bit extra of that Mars black. It'll be more of a grayish color for the dark one. Okay, all 3. So the one that's more gray, the one that's more yellow, and then the one that's more white. Start with the medium one though. Okay, I'm going to make nice long feathers. They're little tiny lines. You can decide kind of how long you want them. I make it about a little bit longer than half of my brush, so maybe that blue handle part of my brush. But it all depends on the size and shape of your wings. So you might be a little longer or a little bit shorter. I want to create this round sort of shape, so all the ones towards the top will kind of be tilting towards the side, and then I will slowly get them to tilt downwards. I'm changing the direction of the line. I'm trying to get them to tilt a little bit downwards as I travel down, and it might be long enough to touch the top of the head, which is a very nice thing because it pushes the head back and brings the wing forward. I'm also going back and I'm thickening these lines. I want them to actually touch each other as they connect to the top part of the wing. So they can separate at the bottom, they can spread out a little bit, but towards the top I would like them to be connected. And I'm just kind of rubbing with my finger slightly so the color gets smeared a little bit and gets mixed in with the rest of the wing. I will be going back and adding some darks and some lights in a minute, but I want to go ahead and get those feathers nice and thick. I can leave them a little bit pointed on the end if I want, or a little more rounded. They are rather thin, but we do want them connected along that top part. I switched to the kind of darker color, the one that's a little more gray, and I'm adding that to the top of the wing so it has an easier time merging into that very dark color that the wing is. The rest of the wing is that dark color. So the feathers need to merge into that. So I added some of the shadow color. I'm also adding some of it to each of the wings. Usually the ones that are more towards the right, I'll add more of it. I'm adding it mostly to the right side. I'm also adding a highlight on the top. The highlight's going to be along the left side. So all these feathers that are on the left side, I'm going to add a little highlight, and I can also have some of it come onto the wing along that little curve up there. Okay, so I'm adding it along this left side, along the tops. So the tops will be a little bit lighter, the bottoms or the right side will be a little bit darker. Okay, I switched back to this medium color. I'll be going back and adding the light color too, but this wing catches a little more sunlight on the top, so I'm adding the medium color first. Okay, same thing, I want to get that nice curve. So these feathers along the other wing, some of them will be tilting down a little bit towards the bottom right corner. And then the ones along the top are pointing to the side edge, and they're nice and long. I'm making them a little bit shorter as they come down. Okay, so the ones at the bottom are a little bit shorter, the ones at the top are rather long, creating this kind of curvature. So I'm paying attention to where the feathers end. Okay, they'll create an implied line, an implied curved line. So it's not actually there. We don't actually paint the line, but we can kind of connect it with our finger. I want them all to line up. So I'm trying to lengthen all the feathers out so that they line up and they create sort of a curving motion. So again, I'm going back and I'm thickening the feathers so that they get merged and stuck together along the top. I'm also going to add some feathers going down the rest of the wing. These ones all slant down at a very sharp angle. They're very close together too. I'm going to get that darker color again. And same thing as I did before, I want to merge the feathers with the wing together. So I'm adding a little bit of this darker color. And it's going to mix a little bit. I can use my finger to help and rub it along. This smaller brush is great for details, but not so great for mixing. You can kind of do it a little bit if the paint's very wet. If it's starting to dry, a finger will help you with that. Okay, so I'm getting the light color again. Again, I'm going back, adding the highlight at the very tippy top of the wing. And I'm going to stick to the very tops of the feathers. This one, a little bit more of the sunlight can come through, so you can even stick it in the middle of the feather. Okay, but I'm always sticking to the end. It can go right in the middle, right over top. But I'm keeping the part that's connected to the main part of the wing a little bit darker. But I can fill up quite a bit with this light color. The sunlight's really coming in on that side, almost making the feathers see-through. All right, we're also going to add some highlight color to the back, but we want to start with the medium color first. I'm going to kind of mix it in, just adding a little bit and rubbing it thin with my finger. Then I'm going to get the super light color, and I would like his back little feathers to be a little bit squarish. So I'm just copying the edge shape. I'm tilting the lines along the right or along the left. The ones in the middle will kind of come straight down, and they're very short, and they're all kind of connected at the bottom. I'm adding some jaggedy lines coming down. You decide how far up you want to go. Stick that brush in the water. Let's add some sprinkles of water coming from his beak, almost like he dipped it in. He tried to catch a fish, didn't quite get it. I like to create a little bit of an S shape, a nice little curve, but just a little trail of dots. I'm also going to add some down here by the feet. Okay, so underneath him, I'm going to add some so touching his leg a little bit, a few there. Just so it looks like he just landed in that water. Splashing down just a little bit. He was going for a bird, didn't quite make it. Okay. Again, I'm adding some extra highlights along the top, extra sunlight in the wings, so I can use pure white for this if you want. Okay, and there we have it, our beautiful water dancer. Well, I hope you had fun on our little painting adventure and you join us for another one. Bye now.